Battlefield used to be the shooter with ambition. Big maps, real squad play, vehicles flying overhead, buildings collapsing. It didn't just reward chaos, it organized it. It gave you tools, objectives, roles, and expected you to actually work with your team. And for a while, that worked. Battlefield 3, 4, Bad Company 2, they all knew exactly what they were, and then they didn't.
But last year, we were blessed with perhaps one of the most insultingly awful launches of any big budget title ever, Battlefield 2042.
Fast forward to 2042, and we've got no campaign, no classes, no scoreboards, just a mess of design trends duct taped together and pushed out the door. What happened to the series that once defined large-scale multiplayer shooters? What the hell happened to Battlefield? The first Battlefield didn't come out swinging with a flashy campaign or tight gunplay. It dropped in with Battlefield 1942, a janky, chaotic, brilliant multiplayer sandbox. You had 64 players, tanks, planes, boats, capture points, and total and utter mayhem. It wasn't about reflexes, it was about positioning, timing, coordination, and back in 2002, it felt like magic. Then came Battlefield 2, and this was the moment that the game series started defining itself. Squad systems, commander roles, voice chat. It turned chaos into structure. You could win with tactics, not just kills, and it actually rewarded teamwork without forcing it. Battlefield 2142 came and went. Experimental, weird, kind of cool if you were there, but the real shift came with Bad Company. Bad Company was looser, funnier, and for the first time had a campaign people actually liked. And then, Bad Company 2. That was the real breakthrough. Destruction. That was the hook. You couldn't just camp in a house because someone could blow the whole house up. It made matches unpredictable, dynamic, and way more satisfying. You weren't just capturing points, you were reshaping the map. And the best part, it still kept the fundamentals. Team play mattered, roles mattered. This was still Battlefield, just lighter, louder, and faster than ever before. By 2010, Battlefield wasn't just an alternative to the other shooters, it was becoming the blueprint. Battlefield 3 and 4. This is where everything clicked. You had spectacle, you had system, you had maps big enough to host multiple playstyles at once, and gunplay tight enough to make it all feel connected. Whether you were holding a choke point, flying air support, or sneaking around with C4, it all worked. Battlefield 3 was the tech showcase, the game that made people upgrade their rigs. It looked unbelievable for 2011 and it still holds up today. It played like DICE finally understood the full potential of the sandbox FPS formula. Gunplay was responsive, squad mechanics mattered, and the vehicles weren't just for show, they were game changers. And then, Battlefield 4 came in like a sequel, with something to prove. Sure, it launched buggy as hell, and that absolutely deserves the criticism it got, but underneath that mess was a game that was deeper, broader, and smarter than anything else on the market. It had Levolution. Yes, the marketing buzzword was a bit much, but the tech delivered. Whole buildings collapsing mid-match, flooded zones changing the flow of combat. It wasn't just spectacle for the trailer, it actually changed how you play. You had commander mode, naval battles, refined gun customization, and just enough chaos to make sure every match feels unscripted. It was the kind of game you played for years. I know I had. Not just because it had content, but because the core gameplay held up year after year. The key was still structure. Every class had purpose. Squads made you better. Playing the objective actually mattered. It was massive, but it had rules. This was Battlefield at its best. A shooter that demanded more from you and rewarded it with the kind of moments no other FPS could replicate. And the player base locked in. People didn't just play Battlefield 4, they lived in it. Everything after this would try to recapture that feeling and never quite get there. When DICE announced Battlefield 1, a lot of people thought they'd lost it. World War I, bolt-action rifles, bayonets and mustard gas, it sounded like the worst possible setting for a modern FPS. Slow, limited, and unmarketable. And then it dropped, and somehow it worked. Battlefield 1 was one of the boldest decisions the franchise ever made, and for a moment, it felt like the series had reinvented itself without losing its soul. The tone was darker, more grounded, and genuinely atmospheric. The weapons felt raw, the maps were brutal, and yet it still delivered that signature Battlefield scale. Massive battles, vehicle chaos, teamwork that actually mattered. The operation mode was one of the best things they'd done in years, turning multiplayer into a kind of cinematic war campaign, pushing across fronts with real momentum and purpose. And the destruction, it was still there, and it was still satisfying. It wasn't perfect, weapon balance was rough, some maps felt like meat grinders, but it had identity. It didn't try to copy anyone. It felt like Battlefield, just seen through a completely different lens. It proved the series could still take risks, still be creative, still deliver a multiplayer experience no other shooter was even attempting. And maybe, most importantly, it still had a fanbase that trusted DICE. This was the last time that would be true. If Battlefield 1 was a bold risk that paid off, Battlefield 5 was just a mess. It started with a trailer that told you everything and nothing. Stylized combat, over-the-top animations, prosthetic limbs flying through the air, and a tone that felt more like Fortnite 1942 than any kind of grounded World War II game. The backlash was immediate, and instead of listening, EA and DICE doubled down with that infamous line, "If you don't like it, don't buy it." So, a lot of people didn't. But the problems went deeper than marketing. The launch was bare bones, core features were missing, content felt rushed, maps were limited, the live service roadmap changed constantly, and the final product felt like it never knew what it wanted to be. It just existed in this weird middle zone, unsure of its tone, its mechanics, or its purpose. Firestorm, the Battle Royale mode they hyped up, released late, supported poorly, and almost dead on arrival. Not because Battle Royale was a bad idea, but because it was bolted on to a game that wasn't stable enough to begin with. And the fanbase noticed. For the first time, the Battlefield community wasn't just frustrated, they were tired. There were still good things in there. Gunplay was still solid, the time to kill debate showed people still cared. But the magic was slipping. The identity was slipping. Battlefield 5 felt like a franchise chasing trends and missing all the fundamentals. The destruction, the squad play, the scale, technically they were present, but buried under inconsistent design choices and a complete lack of direction. It wasn't the collapse yet, but it was the beginning of the end. Battlefield 2042 wasn't just a bad game. It was an unmitigated disaster, and somehow nobody was surprised. They promised next-gen scale, 128 players, dynamic weather with giant sandstorms, evolving maps, maybe a levolution of the levolution. It sounded incredible on paper. And then it launched, with no campaign, no scoreboard even, no classes, and a main menu that felt like it was still pre-alpha. The launch was barely functional.
I'm sorry, I don't play video games that lie to me, you know? I mean, I just don't participate in that.
The servers were a mess. Gunplay was inconsistent. Performance all over the place. You had hovercrafts driving up vertical walls. You had weapons that worked better when you didn't aim down sights. The UI was a joke. The maps were flat and empty. And somehow, with 128 players, matches felt lonelier than ever before. Specialists replaced classes, which again might have worked if it wasn't implemented, like a bad knockoff of Call of Duty Warzone. Suddenly, everyone could do everything. Squad identity was gone, role-based play was gone. Any reason to actually coordinate was gone. It didn't feel like Battlefield. It felt like a Frankenstein live service shooter built from a pitch deck, with pieces borrowed from Apex, Warzone, maybe a little bit of Overwatch. Maybe they looked at Team Fortress 2 as well, yet none of it clicked. Portal mode was the only spark of promise. It was very fun, it let you create your own custom experiences, bring back old maps and rule sets. It was smart, fun, creative, a nod to the community that had stuck around. But they didn't support it, barely expanded on it, and like everything else in 2042, it became just another undercooked idea in a game full of them. Within weeks, players bailed. Steam reviews went red. Fan-made fixes and mods started circulating just to make the game playable. And while DICE has tried to patch it over the last year, it's hard to fix a game that never really knew what it was in the first place. 2042 wasn't just a failed launch, it was the moment Battlefield lost its identity. And worse, the players stopped expecting it to come back. Somewhere along the way, Battlefield stopped being a game with a vision and started being a product with a deadline. The focus shifted from structure to spectacle, from squad play to stat tracking, from giving players roles to letting everyone do whatever they want without accomplishing anything. And you can feel it. In the gunplay, in the map design, in how matches played out. It's not just a worse version of what came before, it's something else entirely. Something less. Because Battlefield used to be about systems working together, not just about selling seasonal cosmetics in a broken live service loop. And 2042 is the end result of that shift. It's not a technical failure. Of course there were many, but mostly it's a philosophical one. The irony is the community still wants it to work. There's still love for this series. You can see it in how people are clinging to Battlefield 4, mod Battlefield 2, or build entire servers just to get a slice of what Battlefield used to feel like. That's the tragedy. Battlefield didn't die because the formula stopped working or players stopped believing in it. It died because the people making the game stopped believing in that formula. And until that changes, all we're gonna get are louder trailers for a quieter game. If you're interested in seeing another game franchise that lost its identity, made by EA, you gotta check out my Dragon Age video right here.